I never know.
Are
you just recording, or is this live?
No, this is just recording.
Oh, thank God for that.
We don't panic each other like that, or else we'd be like, oh.
It's just straight up on live, like.
And welcome to episode 6 of the MH Hokkaido podcast. The official name is still in the works. We've sent a couple of questions out to people, but we haven't actually got one yet. So I think that needs.
What was the ones that we've had at the moment? We've had lockdown podcasts, we've had lockdown guru podcasts, quite a lot of things doing with the lockdown. But no, we don't have the name yet. But yes, today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. We've got the man with the beard. It's a legendary Scott Wood. Scott, introduce yourself, my friend.
Hi, I'm Scott. Personal trainer in Congleton, gym, etc. I like strength stuff, food, and just generally training. In terms of a bit about my past, a couple of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I think now, I had open heart surgery. It's my second one, which I've had since sort of birth. Always really been into like fitness, but after that second surgery, I really got into it. Started off just pretty standard, wanted to get a 6-pack, look good, and then I started getting more into wanting to just get strong, and then I discovered Strongman, which was more fun than anything else I've done. So yeah, went from there. I'm quite new to it, but getting there. I'm up to just started doing novice level comps.
Nice. So yeah, so going on that, mate. Obviously, you've had quite a big heart operation there, which I'm guessing most people, if they had that, they would kind of go, right, that's it for me when it comes to level of activity and stuff like that. I mean, like, did you get advised not to do any activity after your heart operation?
They told me not to. They told me not to do heavy lifting. Obviously, I've ignored that. But yeah, I think the cardiovascular side of things, I don't do like running or bike or anything like that. But the intensity of the stuff that I do with as many reps as possible, or let's say I do some high rep stuff, does seem to help. Like I feel a lot fitter and stronger and better in myself now than I ever have. Because straight after the surgery, it wasn't just like surgery, heart's good, done. It was still day one after being discharged from the hospital, walking around the block, and it sucked because I was out of breath doing that. So I still had to build up a level of fitness, and I feel like I'm in a really good place right now because of the exercise and the strength training.
Yeah. And pretty much like I'm like the moment I near enough met you quite suffered a back injury, which kept you out for, was it a whole year or something like that?
6 months. Yeah, that sucked.
I mean, not quite a year then.
Actually, it was a year until I hit a new PB. Actually, yeah. So I was having on and off problems with it, and then I really did it in, and that took 6 months to come back from.
Okay. Maybe then, mate. Kind of explain what you actually got and what was the necessary steps you had to pretty much do before getting yourself back into top performance.
I think it was a protruded disc, but I kind of see it more as a blessing than a curse in a sense, because it made me fix my technique up a lot, work on weaknesses, and learn about working on my weaknesses to prevent injuries in the future, and made me look into more things like stability work and flexibility and mobility rather than just doing strength stuff.
Yeah.
And since after focusing on that after the injury, because it was basically just lifting with shit form, I've not really had any issues since. Touch wood.
Ego lifting.
Pardon?
Ego lifting.
Yeah. Probably do a bit of that now, but yeah.
Like, what got you on the path of Strongman in the first place?
Oh, it's Chris. So, you know Chris that used to work at the gym.
Yeah.
He bought that login, didn't he? And he showed us the log. Because I'd just been doing deadlifts, bench, squat, and some other stuff. So, typical, like, powerlifting route.
Yeah.
And that was more dynamic in the movements. And, like, the sandbag was more dynamic. You're not just lifting one object from the floor up and then you're done. You had to move like heavy things around, and it was weird shaped objects. It was just more fun and more variety. But you still had to have a level of strength. I just enjoyed it more.
Yeah. And how did you find your motivation change from, let's say, going from the traditional I'm training for abs type of training to, in a way, getting the numbers on them lifts?
I think it was definitely because instead of me just only focusing on deadlift all the time ever, which I still love to do, but I've got other lifts that I enjoy more now because of the strongman stuff, like overhead pressing, log press. I had more to work with, so I can give my deadlifts a break while I work on the other stuff, so I don't smash my deadlifts all the time, not see any progress, and get frustrated. I think that's probably what helps me train more motivated.
In terms of like, obviously everyone will have like a kind of split when they come to workouts if they've actually got it structured. What would yours like generally look towards, and like rest day wise and like general session wise?
I found personally that I train better if I train 4 times a week with the heavier stuff. That for me works well. I've not had to play around with putting a bit more volume in there myself to see if I can adapt better. So I tend to train about 4 times. I like push pull more than anything. So I'll have a squat and an overhead press like in the same session. And then I'll have a deadlift and then rows in the other session. And then in terms of what exercise to put in, I'll generally train for a competition. So I'll have a set list of exercise on the comp, and that's what I'll train for. So it's quite specific to a comp. I find them motivated better if I have something coming up. I don't train as hard about nothing.
Yeah, pretty much like an end goal.
Yeah.
That's a main factor for I think a lot of people, but it's a lot more practical when you've not got like, say, a weight loss goal. Like you've actually got something at the end to then challenge yourself even more. So I think weight loss kind of can get boring for the fact of like you hit your weight loss goal, you're there, and then it's now what? But like a strength goal, you can just keep progressing and going further.
Yeah, but I think that's why most people fail in their weight loss goals, is because they don't set an end goal. They kind of go, yeah, I kind of want to be at this weight and stuff like that, and then, like I said, that's kind of it. But it's like Scott seen me training and all that. But the moment that I'm on something else and I finished it, there's something else already in place for me and stuff like that. So it's always having that constant ability to elevate your training or aim for that higher bit, or let's say for a weight loss goal, either go into that extra 5 pounds, or even building a bit more muscle, or changing around of the training.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's because then you've got like a point A and a point B, and you can put yourself somewhere on that line. And you can see
like little weight targets as you go, like little PBs, or do you set like a general goal and then just figure out how you're going to get there on the way?
Yes,
you would set an A and B, but where they'll have little checkpoints in that A and B. Kind of having a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of satisfaction and stuff like that. So it kind of keeps you going a little bit and stuff like that every single time. Instead of just having one big thing, because in that one big thing, you could literally go all over the place. Instead of just having, little checkpoint. Before you notice, you're there. I mean, that's what they're saying is something like the journey of 10,000 steps begins with the first step.
That's the metaphor. There's always one.
I'm on it. But yeah, it's very true. Like, majority of times with my clients and stuff like that, we have an end goal in place, but the important thing is just getting that each and every step, take it day by day. What 3 things? We break it down so it becomes a lot easier, a simpler task.
Yeah. Oh.
So Scott, saying that, then how have you noticed, like, for example, obviously with yourself being a personal trainer and all that, you're very much your own interested. How has much of that changed into your practice? Like, how are you changing that with your, let's say, your clients and your expertise?
I think from my own experiences of having injuries and working around my injuries and preventing injuries for myself, I know what clients shouldn't be doing. I know what we can do to prevent anything from happening. And if anyone comes in with a back problem, which is probably 90% of people have some kind of issue going on with the back, I can find ways of going, right, let's try this instead of this. Obviously, if it's like a serious problem, it's go to the physio. But, you know, if they are seeing a physio and I'm working with the physio on something as well, I've kind of got experience in it as well. In terms of like their training setup, yeah, I kind of throw a couple of things in there like sandbag and whatever, but I find it's more fun because it's more variety than just using dumbbells all the time, in my opinion.
How many clients have you converted
to Strongman? Strongman as well.
Percentage wise, I won't go numbers or else you'll be there.
Percentage wise, probably 20%, maybe.
All right. What was their background before that? That was like, let's say someone like you who already was training in beforehand, or were they completely new to training, and it was something that obviously you just offered them.
It's mostly people that have some experience in it. I've got people that have come to training fairly new, trained, built up their basics in terms of like how to lift properly and how to like hinge at the hip and squat properly. Then they've seen this kind of stuff and gone, oh, I really, really like that. And then we try a bit out and they start to enjoy it. I probably wouldn't give that much stuff to someone who's never trained before because if you don't know how to move properly with a normal deadlift, trying to lift like a sandbag is not going to be a good idea. So unless we keep it really light.
Just like I see certain movements and I'm like, in practice it seems like good, but then I see like the Zercher squat, and I'm like, it just looks painful to watch.
Yeah, it's not nice on the arms if it's with a bar. If it's with like a sandbag, it's more the fact it crushes you into your chest and it's harder to breathe. But then if you've learned to brace and breathe properly during your lifts, it's not as bad. But if someone isn't breathing properly in their normal deadlifts and then they're trying to like all the normal squats and they're trying to Zercher squat with a sandbag, it's gonna feel worse, which it already feels, it sucks already. So
yeah. I couldn't implement something like that. I mean, for mine kind of stuff, it is the traditional sort of movements and the hinging, but mine won't obviously jump to the certain levels and work to explosive stuff. So I don't know if I'm out saying this, but like it's a lot of explosive work, isn't it?
Yeah. And the more explosive you can be, let's say it comes to like a competition, you can get the lift from point A to B faster. So you'll get going for as many reps as you can in a certain time. Having that explosive power might, put you one rep ahead of the next guy and change what position you're in terms of that competition.
Yeah. So have you ever used like strongman sort of training for someone that's not actually going for strongman? So like if it's like a team sport or anything like that?
No, I mean, there's elements to it, like triple extension. You use that in pretty much any sport. Same for strongman, running, sprinting. So if it's another sport, I'd probably try and find something that's a bit more specific to that.
Okay.
Rather than using a log press.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't expect a log. I was thinking more in terms of like deadlifting. Obviously, that's going to be a key one. But something like the sandbag sort of lifts.
I do use it for people. Let's say someone's training to be in the army or services like the fire service or the police. There's certain fitness tests you have to complete where you've got to do like shot runs with objects. So I'll throw them into there if we are training specifically for a fitness test, which requires you to move something from A to B. But if it was like maybe like a footballer or maybe a rugby player, I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm experienced enough to be able to transfer that into something else.
Okay. So it's more stick to like S&C sort of standard work.
Yeah, with what I know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would definitely say when it comes to, let's say, strongman training, and obviously change my mind if obviously I'm saying wrong, but my opinion of strongman training is very skill specific. So it's very skill specific to, let's say, your competitions and stuff like that. Saying like, for example, let's say myself with football, the skill specific would be me grabbing a football and going out in the park, doing a couple of drills and stuff like that. And then obviously the strength stuff is where you obviously include like your deadlifts, your explosive power, and obviously your other heavy lifts. But going back into that, Scott, so how would you program into that? How would you, let's say if you had a client who wanted to do like strongman stuff or that kind of explosive area we want to do, how would that look in your program?
I think it would depend on the client. If I've never trained them before, I'd want to make sure first that they know how to train properly. Because let's say we've got very tough, higher risk exercises or higher impact exercises in there, and I've never trained them before. I'm not sure what I'll be getting myself into. If I've had experience training them and I know what the training history is like, I know what that person is like a little bit better in terms of their training, I'd figure out whether they can actually do the lifts on a competition first. And if they're not strong enough yet, we'd work on building up that strength so they can lift it. Let's say it's like a 60 kilogram log press and they can only do a 40 kilogram log press. They need to be able to build up to be able to do one at least. And then we'll work on the speed and the explosiveness so they can do more as well. How do you mean though? Like how I would set that program up for a competition? I mean,
for example, like how would you maybe use like the sets and reps or any particular favorite exercises that you might actually like to do?
Always deadlifts, because that movement comes up a lot. Even if it's like picking a sandbag up off the floor or picking your log press, your log from the tire up to your thing, it's always a deadlift movement. If it's an AMRAP on a competition, we'll just work on slightly higher reps and then dropping the weight to do an AMRAP towards the end of it. And then we'll have accessories which work the same sort of muscle groups in that program at slightly higher reps as well. If it's something for speed, let's say like a yoke or farmers, I'd be working on obviously grip strength and just explosive speed and being able to pick the handles up, get from point A to B as fast as possible. Sometimes you see it more, especially the skill side of things, if it's a medley. So let's say you've got a log into a deadlift, into a circus dumbbell. He's been able to increase or decrease time between each sort of event. So have them lift each thing, but also work on their footwork a little bit as well, so they can jump between each exercise as quickly as possible to make time just from not even lifting, just from getting from point A to B as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes exactly sense, mate. Would you obviously add anything like, let's say, bit of anything like conditioning or cardio and stuff, or obviously the kind of things like EMON training or the kind of work, the explosive work you said already? Would you say that's already enough, or would you say they need a substantial level of fitness behind it? Cardiovascular.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a bit of a. This is probably one of the points I always kick myself in the foot for is definitely the endurance on AMRAPs. So someone might not get a last rep, not because they're not strong enough, but because they're just absolutely knackered when it gets to that last rep. So if you can have a level of endurance and fitness by training your cardio, even if it's like 60-second sprints on something, and making sure your step count's high enough so you're walking enough and staying active enough, then you might get an extra rep just because your body's not absolutely tanked by the time you get to that point. I've seen it actually in the novice comp I did the other month, I think now. There was a lot of big guys that were clearly way stronger than me, but by the time we got to like the 6th, 7th rep, you could tell they were just absolutely knackered because they were big static lifters, but they weren't as good at the endurance stuff or the speed work stuff.
It kind of just reminds me of like fighting, where it's like you can be as powerful and as strong as you want, but if you can't make it for the 12 rounds,
yeah,
it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
So.
If obviously, I know there's weight categories and stuff like that, but would you say there's obviously a nice kind of ratio you want to be when it comes to, let's say, weight, for example, or body fat percentage? Because I know, obviously, being in that kind of sport, you don't tend to see a lot of athletes being, let's say,
shredded.
Shredded and stuff like that.
You can say it, we're all fat. No. Yeah, if you look at some of the really top level ones like Rhiannon Lovelace or even I suppose Eddie Hall now, they're just packed with muscle, but they're still pretty ripped to an extent. Larry Wheels as well, he's a good one as an example. For me personally, it's a balance between feeling good within myself as much as I enjoy doing the sport. So I'm pretty happy sticking to a weight category. And if the more and more shredded I can get in that weight category, it means I've got more muscle rather than excess body fat. So it'll actually be beneficial to me to be a bit leaner, in a weight category. I could just go, right, I'm going to get to 150 kilos in body weight and get ridiculously strong, but I wouldn't feel good at that point, and it probably wouldn't be healthy for me, especially with my heart as well.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty enough nearly enough got to that stage, didn't you, a few months ago?
What?
105 kg or something like
that? No. I think the heaviest I've been is 96. I've not weighed myself since quarantine, though, so it could be higher. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever eaten.
Yeah, but as long as I stay as lean as I feel comfortable with, I'm pretty happy doing that. Let's say I hang around under 105s and let's say I hang around under 100s or under 90s, for example, which is a push for me doing under 90. I'd have to stick to that weight, but I'd still want to get stronger. So I'd still be trying to increase the amount of muscle I've got, but then drop in some body fat with that. I suppose that's kind of the standard guy goal anyway.
Yeah. Would you phase that in a way of like a standard kind of bulking and then cutting phase, or would you kind of have like an approach of, let's say, an athlete again, so they have their off season, pre-season, and an in-season kind of approach to training and nutrition?
I'd probably have like a bulking cutting phase, like an off season, like you said. An off season where I can work on my endurance. Rhiannon went through this. I did a seminar with Rhiannon actually, and she said in the off season it's good to work on endurance. So when you do get to the events, where you're training for the events, you've got a baseline of endurance there already. So off season, I probably work on cutting my body fat in the off season. I'm not sure how I'd approach it. To be honest, I'm not very experienced in it, so I wouldn't know what approach I want or how that would work for me. And then when it comes towards the event, I'd probably want to be eating more then anyway, so I've got the energy to train for it properly. That's how I personally would feel would work for me. What's that, sorry?
Would that be more of a case of then obviously like carbohydrates then?
Yeah. So keep them high before the event, of course. Year-round carbs.
Get the sandwich out. But if people haven't seen Scott's sandwiches, they are unreal. You know them like Tiger French baguettes that you usually get for like 2 or 3 people? Yeah, that's like a snack to him.
Yeah, it's a normal lunch, that, isn't it? No?
No, exactly. Packet of Sam, pack of spinach, and whatever you put onto that sandwich. It's unreal.
So I'll throw this in as like a situation, and like I've been training strongman for like say 2 months, and I know like all the lifts and all the techniques. What's like a couple of things that you've seen like people neglect and forget like they need to include?
Definitely endurance, I think. Flexibility, for one, unless you've got hypermobility, I'd say flexibility. People are usually tight as shit, and it limits what they can do in terms of progression because they can't get into certain movements. I suppose that's the same for any sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you get to a point where you plateau and you're just a big robot, then you're gonna probably just struggle anyway. And that I think doesn't help with injury prevention, being tight as shit all the time.
Almost constantly in a short position.
Yeah.
Going to just be too stressed, especially for the load you're going to be putting through it.
Yeah, I think recovery as well, people tend to neglect. So again, probably the same for anything really, is making sure you're sleeping enough and not training too much that you don't give your body enough time to repair and get stronger.
You said,
would you probably say that? And obviously, you kind of, like everything really, you kind of got to find that kind of top end of recovery. If you had too less, it's obviously going to affect you, and too much, and you kind of wait for a lot of opportunity for you to get stronger in the gym or in the sport. So how much would you say? Obviously, it's very much dependent on the person and their training plans.
I believe so, yeah. I mean, that I'd say is probably an opinion, but I think everyone requires like a different amount. If they are doing loads of training, loads of volume, and they are recovering and they're having like 1 or 2 rest days, but they're progressing really well, I'd say that they're probably on the sweet spot for them. Like I would train 4 times a week. I could probably even train 3 and get some progression. For me, that seems to work well. I think that leads down to the intensity that I like to train at. And maybe how much of my body's potential I can use, maybe, in a sense.
Yeah.
In comparison to someone that's quite new at lifting.
Yeah, obviously the more experience you have in training, the more you kind of adhere to kind of programming and stuff like that.
Just out of interest, Myles, what's your like days on and off?
My days on and off. So my current training split. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So while I was, it's very different. Like I say, from my life at the moment is just chill. But yeah,
workout life.
I probably would say then, if I was going for a normal training week, I have 3 training days. 2 would be very kind of impact, very quite high intensity kind of type of stuff. And then I'll have a kind of a low intensity training, stuff like that. This will probably be more later on in the week when I know I've got pretty football training or I've got a match. So I need to make sure I've got the saving energy for that. But my other 2 sessions where I'm going quite hard, one of them will be very based on stuff like explosive energy and stuff like that. And then the other will be very based on the strength side of things as well. So that one might be a little bit longer than the explosive stuff. So that will be my kind of general split. If it was an off season, then obviously I've got a little bit more time. And I don't have to worry about a match. So I could particularly train a lot more within the week. I can split it up throughout more of the days. So obviously it might do less duration in my workout times, but then obviously I'm going hitting more frequency throughout the week. So that's how I might change from into off season.
I was just curious. With everything going on, and I'm just like, maybe we could talk some normalcy instead of just chatting about the crap that's going on.
My question is for you, Scott, is when are you going to get your lockdown haircut? I mean, you've never had a haircut for the last 6 months.
I'm not going to try to cut my own. Might look like yours.
Yeah. Yeah, Ned.
Yours actually looks quite good. But yeah, I'm not
proud about it. You even sent me a video.
I mean, I've got a habit of when I start doing something new that I've never done, I'm not very good at it. So when it comes to haircuts, I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah.
I'll have more of a receding hairline than I've already got. No thanks.
Really? Right then. I think that's generally everything that we wanted to talk about today, isn't it, boys?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we could touch on injuries a bit, or we could do a part 2.
I definitely said we could do a little bit of a part 2 on that. Obviously Scott's obviously mentioned a lot before about obviously injuries. Scott, I want to say a massive thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I think obviously your expertise in strongman and obviously your way of training and your history is going to give a lot of people a lot of massive help and stuff like that. Top guy overall. So thank you very much for coming on board, mate.
Thanks for having me. Fun being here.
Nice. So yeah, guys, that was the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy. What the hell are you doing, man?
Checking out my lockdown.
But yes, hope to see you guys for another day. Stay safe and peace.